My name is Alexander, and this is the story of how I destroyed my own world by reading a book I was never meant to open. It all started and ended with a key. A small, cold, brass key that I found tucked inside the pocket of a winter coat I was taking to the dry cleaner. It was a key I recognized instantly. It belonged to the small, handcrafted wooden chest my wife, Clara, kept on the top shelf of her closet. The chest that held her diaries. Clara had been keeping a diary since she was a teenager. She called them her brain boxes, a place to declutter her mind. She'd never explicitly forbidden me from reading them, but it was an unspoken rule, a sacred boundary in our 10 years of marriage. I'd never had any desire to cross it. Until that day. The key felt heavy in my palm, like a forbidden fruit made of metal. Clara was out, visiting her sister for the afternoon. The house was silent. A silence that felt accusing and inviting all at once. A voice in my head, the one you should never listen to, whispered that if there was nothing to hide, then a quick look wouldn't matter. Maybe I'd find a sweet entry about me, about our life. Maybe it would be a way to feel closer to her, to understand the subtle distance that had seemed to grow between us lately. A distance I'd chalked up to the stress of work, of life. If you've ever felt that nagging doubt, that whisper of curiosity in a quiet house, you'll know the path I was about to take. You'll know it leads to a place you can never return from. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, the key clutched in my sweaty hand. The wooden chest was where it always was, wrapped in a faint layer of dust. My heart hammered against my ribs as I fitted the key into the lock. It turned with a soft, definitive click that echoed in the quiet room. Inside, stacked neatly, were a dozen or so notebooks, each a different color, each representing a chapter of her life. I ignored the older, more faded ones. My eyes went straight to the newest one, a beautiful deep blue leather journal I'd bought for her just last Christmas. I sat on the edge of our bed, the same bed we shared, where we whispered our dreams and held each other through nightmares. I took a deep breath, the scent of her perfume still lingering on the pillows, and I opened the book. The first few pages were what I expected. Thoughts on a book she was reading, a funny thing our cat had done, a memory of a picnic we'd had. I smiled, feeling a flush of guilt, but also a sense of warmth. This was my Clara. Then I turned a page and the world began to tilt. The entry was dated about 3 months ago. I saw Daniel today. The name was like a splash of cold water. Daniel, her ex-boyfriend from college. The one before me. The one I knew had been a serious, intense relationship that ended badly. I'd never felt threatened by him. He was a ghost from a past life. But here he was in her present. He looked just the same, but older, more settled. We had coffee. It was strange. Felt like no time had passed at all. We talked for 2 hours, laughing about old times. He asked about me, about my life with Alex. I found myself editing, polishing the reality, making it sound shinier than it feels. My blood ran cold. Editing? Polishing? What did that mean? Our life wasn't shiny enough? I read on, my heart now a frantic drum in my chest. Being with Daniel was like remembering a version of myself I'd forgotten. A version that was wilder, more passionate, more seen. Alex is a good man, a stable man. He provides. He is safe. But with Daniel I felt alive. Truly, terrifyingly alive. The word safe felt like an insult. It was a synonym for boring, for predictable. And alive? What was I then? Prison warden? A life sentence? I kept reading, my eyes scanning the pages now, hunger and horror warring inside me. The entries became a chronicle of a secret life. There were more meetings, bumping into each other at the art museum she loved and I found boring. A chance encounter at a bookstore. Then the lies started appearing in her entries, lies she had told me. A girls' night out that was a dinner with him. A work-late evening that was a long walk by the river. The details were what destroyed me. She didn't just write about what they did. She wrote about what she felt. When his hand brushed mine, it was like a jolt of electricity. I'd forgotten what that felt like. He remembers the song that was playing the first time we kissed. He remembers everything. I look at Alex sometimes, when he's talking about his spreadsheets or the lawn, and I feel nothing. A flat line. Where did all the feeling go? Each word was a shard of glass, shredding me from the inside out. I felt a physical pain in my chest, a crushing weight that made it hard to breathe. This couldn't be my Clara. This couldn't be the woman who had kissed me goodbye this morning, who had made love to me just last week, who had stood beside me and promised me forever. And then I reached the entry from 2 weeks ago, the one that broke me completely. I think I'm still in love with Daniel. No, I know I am. It's not a memory anymore. It's a present, aching reality. He says he's never stopped loving me. He says we were always meant to be. And I'm starting to believe him. When I'm with him, the world makes sense. When I'm with Alex, I'm just playing a part, waiting for the curtain to fall. I threw the diary across the room. It hit the wall with a dull thud and fell to the floor, pages splayed like broken wings. I stood up, my body trembling with a rage so pure and hot it blinded me. I paced the room, running my hands through my hair, wanting to scream, to break something, to tear the whole world down. The images the words conjured were a torture chamber in my mind. Her laughing with him, his hand brushing hers. The look she described, the one of being truly seen. I had never felt so betrayed, so utterly and completely destroyed. This right here, this moment of volcanic rage and soul-crushing pain, is the center of my story. This is the hook, the moment my life shattered. But to understand the full depth of the betrayal, you need to know what came before. You need to know about the love that made this hurt so much. Stay till the end because what happens next will shock you. I need to rewind. I need to go back to the beginning, to when Clara was just a girl with sun-kissed hair and a laugh that could quiet my noisy mind. I met Clara at a friend's wedding. She was a bridesmaid, wearing a terrible lavender dress, but she shone brighter than the bride. I was a groomsman, nervous and fumbling with my tie. We got talking during the reception, and it was like finding a frequency only we could hear. We talked for hours. She was an artist, a dreamer, with a fiery passion for life that both intimidated and enthralled me. I was an accountant, grounded, logical. She was the color to my black and white. Our courtship was a whirlwind. We went on adventures every weekend. Hiking, spontaneous road trips, trying weird food. She dragged me to art galleries and made me see the stories in the brushstrokes. I taught her how to budget and showed her the quiet comfort of a planned future. We were opposites, but we fit. We balanced each other. I remember the night I told her I loved her. We were on a beach under a blanket of stars. She cried and said, "You feel like home, Alex. You finally feel like home." We built a life. A good life. We bought this house. We got a dog, then a cat. We had lazy Sunday mornings and passionate Saturday nights. We supported each other through career changes, through the loss of her father, through my mother's illness. We were a team. For years, it was us against the world. But somewhere along the way, the color began to fade. Life became routine. My job demanded more hours. Her freelance art business took off, but it also brought stress. The spontaneous trips became less frequent. The deep conversations were replaced by discussions about bills and home repairs. I thought it was normal. I thought it was just what happened when you built a life together. The passionate fire was supposed to bank into steady, warm embers. I thought our embers were still glowing. I was wrong. According to her diary, the embers had gone cold for her, and Daniel had come along with a can of gasoline. The sound of her key in the front door jolted me out of my horrific trip down memory lane. I was still standing in our bedroom, the diary lying on the floor where I'd thrown it. The evidence of my crime and her betrayal laid bare between us. "Alex, I'm home." Her voice called up the stairs, light and happy. The sound of that happiness, now knowing its source, felt like a physical blow. I didn't answer, couldn't. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, light and familiar. She appeared in the doorway, her cheeks flushed from the cool air outside, a smile on her face. That smile died the second she saw me. She saw my face, pale and tight with fury. She saw the open chest on the shelf. And then her eyes fell to the blue diary on the floor. Her hand flew to her mouth. The color drained from her face. Alex, she whispered, her voice trembling. Don't, I said. My own voice a low, dangerous growl I didn't recognize. Don't you dare say a word. You read it? She asked, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and fear. Was I not supposed to? I snapped, the rage boiling over. Was I supposed to just keep living this lie with you? Playing my part in your little play while you were offstage with Daniel? I spat his name like it was poison. She flinched. It's not what you think. Not what I think? I laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. So you didn't write that you're still in love with him? You didn't write that being with me is like a flatline? You didn't write about all the lies, the secret meetings, the jolt of electricity? My voice was rising with each accusation, echoing in the small room. Tears welled in her eyes. Alex, please, let me explain. Explain what? I roared, picking up the diary and shaking it at her. It's all right here. In your own words. You've written my obituary, Clara. You've buried our marriage in this book. What could you possibly explain? She was crying fully now, silent tears streaming down her face. I was confused. I was working through my feelings. It was just writing. It's not all real. It felt real enough when you were writing it. I shot back. Do you have any idea what it feels like to read this? To see the woman you love, the woman you've built your entire world around, describe you as safe and stable like you're a reliable sedan? To read about how another man makes her feel alive? My voice broke on the last word. The anger was suddenly gone, replaced by a devastating, hollowing grief. I sank onto the bed, the diary falling from my numb fingers. You broke me, Clara. She rushed over, kneeling in front of me, trying to take my hands. I jerked them away as if her touch was fire. Don't touch me. Alex, I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I never meant for you to see that. Those were just my dark thoughts, my moments of weakness. Our life had gotten so routine. I felt invisible. Daniel was a fantasy, an escape from the boredom. Boredom? I repeated, the word tasting like ash. So our life, our home, our love, it was just boring to you. It's more complicated than that, she pleaded. Is it? Because it seems pretty simple from where I'm sitting. You fell out of love with me and back in love with your ex. The only complication is that you're too much of a coward to tell me to my face, so you wrote it in your little book instead. She looked up at me, her eyes desperate. I am not in love with him. Not really. It was nostalgia, it was the past looking rosy. What we have is real. This is real. She gestured between us. Was, I said coldly. What we had was real. It's not anymore. Can't be. Not after this. The days that followed were a cold war. I moved into the guest room. We moved around the house like ghosts, speaking only when necessary in clipped, formal tones. The silence was a living entity, thick and suffocating. I was a mess of conflicting emotions. One moment, I was consumed by a white-hot rage, imagining confronting Daniel, imagining all the ways I could make her feel the pain I was feeling. The next, I was drowning in a bottomless grief, mourning the death of the future I thought we had. I started digging. The diary had given me the blueprint of her deception, and I used it. I checked our phone records. There were calls to a number I didn't recognize, lasting for hours, late at night when she thought I was asleep. I accessed her email, a massive violation of trust, but what trust was left to violate? I found deleted drafts of emails to him, filled with the same poetic language from her diary. They were planning a future. They talked about a city they could move to, a fresh start. The evidence was a mountain, and I was being buried alive under it. Every new piece of proof was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. Tell me in the comments, what would you do in his place? Would you have confronted her immediately? Would you have tried to fight for her? I thought there was nothing left to fight for. But then the first twist came. It was a Tuesday. I'd taken the day off work, unable to face the pretense of normality. Clara was at her studio. The house was empty, and the silence was screaming at me. I went back to the chest. I don't know why. Maybe I was a masochist, wanting to feel the cuts of her words one more time. I took out the blue diary again, but this time I started from the very beginning, from the first entry after I'd given it to her. And I found it. Something I'd missed in my frantic, rage-filled first read. An entry from just after the first time she'd seen Daniel. Saw Daniel today. It was unsettling. He looked older, harder. He insisted on coffee and spent the whole time talking about himself, his failed business, his bitterness. He asked about Alex, and I told him how happy I was, how supportive Alex is, how we're building a life. It felt like I was building a fortress with my words, trying to keep his negativity out. He made a snide comment about Alex being predictable. I wanted to throw my coffee in his face. My Alex is my rock. Predictable is what keeps me safe when the world feels chaotic. I stared at the page, my mind reeling. This was the opposite of what I'd read later. This was the Clara I knew, the one who loved me. I kept reading, my heart thumping a confused rhythm. The entries that followed were a strange contradiction. There was the narrative of her rekindled passion for Daniel, the one that had destroyed me. But woven between those lines were flashes of a different story. She wrote about feeling pressured by him. She wrote about his persistence, his refusal to take "I'm happy" for an answer. She wrote about feeling guilty for even talking to him, knowing it would hurt me. It was like reading two different diaries. One was a love story for Daniel. The other was a chronicle of a woman being emotionally manipulated. Which one was real? The second twist came a week later, and it was even more shocking. I was in the guest room packing a bag. I decided to move out to get a hotel room. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. As I was pulling my suitcase from the closet, a small, black moleskine notebook fell out from behind it. It must have been tucked away on the top shelf and gotten knocked down. I picked it up. It wasn't one of her usual diaries. It was cheap, unadorned. I opened it with a sense of dread, expecting more devastation. But it wasn't her handwriting. Saw Daniel today. It was unsettling. He looked older, harder. He insisted on coffee and spent the whole time talking about himself, his failed business, his bitterness. He asked about Alex, and I told him how happy I was, how supportive Alex is, how we're building a life. It felt like I was building a fortress with my words, trying to keep his negativity out. He made a snide comment about Alex being predictable. I wanted to throw my coffee in his face. My Alex is my rock. Predictable is what keeps me safe when the world feels chaotic. I stared at the page, my mind reeling. This was the opposite of what I'd read later. This was the Clara I knew, the one who loved me. I kept reading, my heart thumping a confused rhythm. The entries that followed were a strange contradiction. There was the narrative of her rekindled passion for Daniel, the one that had destroyed me. But woven between those lines were flashes of a different story. She wrote about feeling pressured by him. She wrote about his persistence, his refusal to take "I'm happy" for an answer. She wrote about feeling guilty for even talking to him, knowing it would hurt me. It was like reading two different diaries. One was a love story for Daniel. The other was a chronicle of a woman being emotionally manipulated. Which one was real? The second twist came a week later, and it was even more shocking. I was in the guest room packing a bag. I decided to move out to get a hotel room. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. As I was pulling my suitcase from the closet, a small, black moleskine notebook fell out from behind it. It must have been tucked away on the top shelf and gotten knocked down. I picked it up. It wasn't one of her usual diaries. It was cheap, unadorned. I opened it with a sense of dread, expecting more devastation. But it wasn't her handwriting. The pages were filled with a sharp, angular script I didn't recognize. I flipped to the front. There was a name written there. Daniel. My blood ran cold. How did his notebook get in our house? In our closet? I started reading, and with every sentence, the world I thought I understood crumbled into a new, more terrifying configuration. This wasn't a diary. It was a plan. A blueprint for destruction. Phase 1. Re-establish contact. Use nostalgia. Remind her of the passionate young man I was. Contrast with the boring husband. Phase 2. Isolate. Make her feel misunderstood by him, Be the one who gets her. Plant seeds of doubt about their relationship. Phase 3, erode. Consistently point out his flaws. Magnify every mistake. Make safe seem like stifling. Make stable seem like stagnant. Phase 4, rewrite history. Convince her that what we had was true love, tragically interrupted. That he is the obstacle to our destiny. I turned the pages, my hands shaking so badly I could barely read. It was all there. A calculated, cold-blooded psychological operation designed to steal my wife. He documented their meetings, analyzing her reactions. He wrote down things to say to her, lines to feed her. He noted when she seemed vulnerable, when she seemed happy with me, so he could attack those specific points later. And then I found the entry that made my stomach drop into a bottomless pit. The journal is working better than I could have hoped. Finding the key was a lucky break. Copying her style was a genius move. She'll never suspect. When he finds it, and he will, because I'll make sure of it, it will destroy him. It will destroy them. And she'll be so broken, so convinced that her marriage was a lie, that she'll have no one to turn to but me. I slumped against the wall, the notebook falling from my hands. It wasn't her. The most damning entries, the ones that had shattered my soul. They weren't written by Clara. They were written by him. He had somehow gotten a key to her chest. He had planted a forged diary, filled with his poisonous words designed to look like hers. He had been playing us both. He was manipulating her in person, and he was manipulating me through her most private space. The rage I felt then was different. It wasn't the hot, chaotic rage of betrayal. It was a cold, focused, and deadly fury. This man hadn't just tried to steal my wife. He had tried to annihilate us from the inside out. He had violated the sanctity of our home, our marriage, her mind, and mine. But why? The answer was on the last page of his little black book. She chose him over me 10 years ago. She said he was a better man. She said he would give her a real life. Well, I'll show her what a real life is. I'll take it all from him just like he took it from me. And when I'm done, she'll come crawling back, and I'll be the one to decide if I want her. This isn't about love. It's about winning. It was revenge. A decade-old, festering wound that had turned into a monstrous plan. I didn't know what to do. The truth was a nuclear bomb. If I told Clara, how would she react? Would she believe me? Or would she think I was the one forging evidence, trying to trick her? The foundation of our entire relationship had been turned to quicksand. I decided I had to show her. I had to risk it. I waited for her to come home. The 2 books, the blue diary and the black moleskine, sitting on the coffee table in front of me like pieces of a deadly game. When she walked in, she looked tired and sad. She saw the books and her face hardened. "What now, Alex? Have you come to read me more of my own sins?" "Sit down, Clara," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "Please, you need to see this." She sat warily on the edge of the armchair. I pushed the black moleskine toward her. "What is that?" she asked. "Just read it," I said. She picked it up, a frown on her face. She opened it. I watched as her eyes scanned the first page. The confusion was evident. Then, as she turned the pages, the confusion turned to dawning horror. Her hand flew to her mouth, just as it had when she'd seen me with her diary. But this was a different kind of horror. This was the horror of realizing you've been a pawn in a malicious game. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with terror and disbelief. "Where did you get this?" "It fell out of the closet in the guest room," I said. "He must have planted it there during one of his visits, maybe as a trophy or maybe as a backup plan." "Read the last page, Clara." She flipped to the end. I saw her read the final entry. Her whole body began to shake. The notebook dropped to the floor. She looked at me, and for the first time in weeks, I saw my Clara in her eyes. The real her. The one who loved me. "Oh my God, Alex," she whispered. Her voice choked with sobs. "None of it was true. The things I thought I was feeling, he was putting them there. He was gaslighting me in person and gaslighting you through my diary." She broke down, weeping uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was so stupid." I felt so lost and he preyed on that. I went to her then. I knelt in front of her and took her hands. This time I didn't pull away. I know, I said, my own voice thick with emotion. I read your real entries, Clara. The ones at the beginning of the blue diary. I read what you really thought. I was just too blind with pain to see the contradiction. We held each other as the storm of the truth broke over us. It was a storm of relief, but also of a new, shared trauma. We had both been victims. Our marriage had been attacked, and it had almost been destroyed. But it wasn't. We were still standing in the wreckage together. We returned to the opening moment of our destruction, but this time with new eyes. We went back to our bedroom. I picked up the blue diary from where it still lay. I opened it to the forged, painful entries in the middle. Then I showed her the real ones at the beginning and the end. He read her diary, I said softly, holding her close, and what he read destroyed him, but it also led him to the truth. It led him back to her. We didn't go to the police. What would we say? It was a crime of the heart, too nebulous for lawyers and courts. But we cut Daniel out of our lives completely. Clara sent him one final email, attaching photos of pages from his own black book, and told him to never contact us again. He didn't reply. He just vanished, a ghost finally exorcised. The path to healing wasn't easy. The wounds he inflicted were deep. Trust had to be slowly, carefully rebuilt. We started couples therapy. We learned to communicate again, to talk about the boredom, the routine, the fear of becoming invisible. We started dating each other again. We reintroduced the color, the spontaneity, the passion. That was a year ago. Our marriage is stronger now than it ever was. We survived an assassination attempt on our love, and in doing so, we remembered why we fell in love in the first place. The diary chest is still in the closet. Clara still writes in it, and I would never, ever dream of reading it without her permission. Some boundaries are sacred for a reason. My story is one of betrayal, but it's also one of redemption. It's a warning about the poison of doubt and the destructive power of a vengeful heart. But it's also a testament to the resilience of true love. We looked into the abyss and we walked away hand in hand. If this story of heartbreak, shocking twists, and hard-won redemption touched you, if it made you feel the ache and the eventual hope, then hit subscribe and don't miss the next heartbreak that will leave you speechless. Because sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that are almost destroyed, but survive. Thank you for listening.